So you might have noticed my programs are all about New Zealand history of vehicles. We started off with talking trucks, and that went for 5 years, and then we changed to low gear, where we could look at tractors and bulldozers and graders and contracting, and spoke to the people in that industry. And then COVID came, so we started the Billy Ho Show, which is all things nostalgic. Then after COVID, we did cranes and all, and had a look at the history of New Zealand cranes, current day included. And now we're going to start the history of New Zealand cars through Dad's old car. So if you've got an old car and you'd like to sort of see it on telly, give me a call, there's the details. Or send me a text, 027 277 0717, and we'd love to come and talk to you. My first car, just thinking out loud, was a Holden FX jail bar Holden Ute. It was blue, and here is a photo of it parked at the end of our street next to my mother's old Vauxhall. And I actually saw a similar FX Holden down Palmerston Way. We were down there filming the ploughing competitions a couple of 3 years ago, and this car, or Ute, was there, and I was very, very excited. So here's my little take on that Ute. Look at this. About 1965, I bought one of these. This is a jail bar Holden. It was the first Holden to come out. I think it was 1949, this job. But yeah, it's exactly like this. It was a marvellous car. It had a little ceramic on the end of the gear change, column change. There it is. Yeah, great to see one. But one of the things about this was it was £100, and so I could afford it. But next to it was an F100 Ford, and that was £200, and I never had £200, and I didn't want to go into that, so I bought this, and had a great time with it. And this could be it. It could be it. Same colour, everything. So there it is, the old jail bar Holden. Isn't it amazing? With me is Dean, and Dean, welcome to our little show.
Thank you very much.
Dad's old car. And Prefect
1956, yes, 100E.
I understand it belonged to your grandmother.
It did, yes.
Tell me about that.
My grandmother owned it. I live in Browns Bay. She originally lived in Browns Bay. Then she moved up to Monganui in the far north, and then the car went back up there.
Oh yes.
And then when she'd finished with it, she passed it back on to me, and now it's back in Browns Bay again, where I live.
So as kids, did you travel in this?
We did. We used to go to Monganui for school holidays, and we used to get brought back home in this. Stop on the top of the Brendan Dugan's, which was almost halfway, let it cool down, have a cup of tea, check the water, check the oil, away we went again.
It didn't have a crank with it, did it?
No.
Did you ever have to push it to make it go?
Not from my memory, no, not at all.
A good reliable car.
It was, and still is, yes.
I'm just looking at the controls, very simple, 3 little switches. Did it have a choke?
Yes,
Yep.
yes, long manual choke.
And a gear stick that's got 1, 2, 3.
3.
And reverse was over there.
That's the one, yes.
That's the one, a little indicator, your indicators still go on the top of the steering wheel.
That's right,
Yep.
Still going, yes.
My neighbours had one of these, and I went up to Dargaville, visit somebody, and my car broke down, so I'm walking home, and our neighbours pulled up. Oh, g'day Bill, you want a ride? And there were 4 of them in there, and I sort of squashed into the back.
Oh.
All the way back to Auckland.
It was nuts.
That was a hell trip, that one. But anyway, I got my licence in one of these.
Did you?
I just turned 16, probably a bit late to be getting licences, I suppose, but my uncle knew the cop. And anyway, he drove me there, and out they went, and they're talking fishing, and then he noticed me. He said, "What's the boy doing here?" "Oh, he's come to get his licence." "Oh, has he? Oh, okay. Son, get in that car, go up the hill, turn left, come back." "You're not coming?" "No." "Okay, off you went." Up the hill, across, turn left. Back I go. And I was sitting in there for another 20 minutes, and he noticed me. "Oh, you're back." I think he did it on purpose. So he says, good done, well done son, here's your license, and you're going to want a motorbike sooner or later, so here's that as well.
Oh.
Good on you, see you later.
Those were the days, weren't they?
If you've got an old car like this that you remember your grandparents or your parents and you spent time in it as a kid, there's my contact details. Give me a call, send me an email, or go on the Facebook page and give me a call. And Dean, the little engine in this, what power is that?
It's 1
Really?
just over 1,000 cc's, yes.
Is that what they call Morrie Thales? They were 1,000 cc.
They're 1,000 cc. I think these are 1173.
A little bit more powerful.
Something like that. Yeah.
Can we have a look?
Yes, can.
We'll have a look at this engine, folks. And the other thing about these is the bonnet doesn't open up that way. It actually opens up forward, so
Where
you
do you
can,
want me?
you can
Now
see what's happening. There's
Let's
probably a
open
little
up
clip.
here, up the front there.
See,
And there we have it.
that engine looks a little bit bigger than a Morrie, just looking at it. It's still got the original generator.
It has, yes.
And what sort of trouble do you have with it, if any?
I don't have any trouble at all. I had this engine rebuilt, 2 years ago now.
Oh yes.
But the last time it was rebuilt, I was just a teenager then.
Wow.
So that was many years ago, and
Yeah,
I'm 55 now. So I'm sort of figuring by the time it needs doing again next, I'll probably be in my 80s.
Fair enough. But it just looks the original colour, all the original sort of splashing and stuff that's happened to it.
Yes, this is all
over there.
all rust proofing that Nanny used to have thrown all at it.
Oh, okay. There was a bloke in Tātika, and he had a 1938 International truck. And what he did with that to rust proof it is every 3 months he would just cover it in diesel.
Yes, well, Nanny used to take this over to Kai Tire every year and get them to spray oil all underneath it. And that's probably what saved it.
Yeah,
It sounds funny, but it's probably what saved it.
Or turning into a rust bucket, as a lot of these British cars probably did back in the day. But as I said, if you've got an old car, we'd love to come and talk to you. There's my details. Give me a call, Bill Hohepper at extra.co.nz, or my phone. Send me a text 027 277 0717, and we'll come and talk to you. Good on you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Nice talking with you.
Well, that was great to see a Prefect in pretty original order, and good on you, Dean, for keeping it like that. Next up is a Morris, 1937 Morris. And I just remember my ex-father-in-law, that was the family car. He got his family in the car and off they went for probably a 200-mile drive up to a place called Owakra. So let's have a look at this old Morrie. Well, this is a Morris 8. Beautiful car. It may have been restored, or it may have come through its whole life looking like this, but I'm sure the man who owns it has probably done a few things to it. Beautiful. Now, I just remember my ex-father-in-law, this was the family car, and they go from Auckland to a place called Owakra in the north, and the roads were dust most of the way, but a tar seal here and there, but it was just dust. And they had 4 children, so it's mum, dad, 3 kids in the back, and the baby sitting on mum's knee in the front on the side. And off they go, set off with all the dust on behind. I'm sure it would have been dusty as hell in the back of that back seat there. Hot summer's day, heat, and going up the Brendan, I'm pretty sure that most cars like this probably would have had to stop at the top to cool down. Because the radiators, I don't suppose, were all that wonderful back in that day. I'm pretty sure there's a, no there's, oh yes there is, there's a hole in the front there for a crank handle, so if it didn't go you could put the crank in and give it the old 1-2. But I just imagine those kids sitting in the back of this, all the way to the north, the dust, the heat, and the rest of it, the arguments, the fights, the whole 9 yards, and they'd be absolutely delighted to get out of this at the other end at Owakra. But I just remember this is just what they had, and this was the family car. And one of the interesting things about this old girl is she had the indicators of the time. which is just a little arm that popped out in the middle of the car, flashing away there, that tells people you're turning left or right. So that's the first indicator, and before that they had you stick your arm out the window and just hold it straight out if you were turning right, and make a stop sign if you're turning left or going to stop. Interesting. So if you've got a story or something like that, I'd love to hear from you. There's my details, billhohipper@extra.co.nz, or send me a text 027 277 0717. We'd love to come and talk to you. But anyway, I just think this is the old Morrie 8, beautiful.
Have you looked at the number plate?
And we probably need to have a look at the number plate, which says Horace, and that was actually my ex-father-in-law's name, Horace Miller. So there's just a coincidence, an absolute coincidence, that this old girl is called Horace, and I think it absolutely suits it to the max. Well, that was interesting. What I found really interesting was the little flippers that pop out the side of the car when you wanted to turn, and that was previous to the blinker lights that probably came about 1959, 1960, the first blinker light. So what we're going to do now is go and have a look at an old Morrie Thou, and my grandmother had a Morrie Thou we hurtled around the Hauraku Plains, and so let's have a look at the old Morrie. This is a Morrie Thou, and earlier we saw a Morris 8 from 1937. This says here it's 1961, but the similar thing, it's got on the grill here, it's got a little logo frame, and on that it says M for Morris. The other one had 8 written in this little thing here, but my grandmother, Olive was her name, traded her, well, she didn't trade it, she gave it to my mother, the old Flying Standard 10, 1938, and she bought one of these. And there was Mum and her sitting in the front, and me and my 2 brothers sitting in the back, and off we go from Turua to Thames. And I'm pretty sure she still holds the record going from Turua to Thames, because she used to bury the boot and fly along at 100 miles an hour. Mind you, a fair bit of the road then was dust, so we copped it in the back with the dust. But the old Morrie Thou, I just remember it was just fun. And there too, it's got the little arms that stick out. Little arm comes out when you turn the indicator on, a little flashing light that says you're going to turn right, or one on the left hand side that says you're going to turn left. And I think these had 4 gears. 1, 2, 3, 4, and reverse was over and up, I think. But it had a 1000cc engine under there, and it was just brilliant. So if you have an experience with a Morrie Thou, there's my contact details. Give me a call, billhohipper@extra.co.nz, or text me 027 277 0717, and we'd love to come and talk to you. So there you go, the old Morrie Thou. With me is a very famous New Zealander, Brendan Dugan, a country singer extraordinaire, and I'm sure if you've been around the traps, you've heard him somewhere in the last 50 years. I remember watching one on a little TV set, black and white set at home, and I think you won something, some sort of a prize or award.
I did. I won a program called New Faces.
New Faces,
that's coming up 55 years ago.
Who was the announcer?
I should know that.
You should, but anyway, it doesn't matter.
He's dead just now.
Yes, is he?
Yes, yes he is.
So, Brendan, your father...
Cham the Man.
Cham the Man.
That was him.
Ah, what did he look like? Bald head?
A good looking fellow.
Oh, was he?
Just like yourself.
Right. Anyway, our topic is Dad's old car, and your dad had an old car. What was it?
He had a Vanguard Space Master.
Now, why would they call it a Space Master? I mean, in 1950, the last thing they were thinking about is sending rockets into space. But I know also in 1950, Studebaker decided they were going to have this bullet nose, and it looked like a rocket, you know. But I think it's more about the space in the car rather than.
Well, for guys like you, big guys like you see,
Yeah.
there's plenty of room.
My Uncle Jim had one of these,
Yep.
and he was a big guy, and he got him, arm out the window, sort of a driver. But I remember
Sunburn.
they had bench seats, front and back, and a lot of the cars in that time had bench seats because you see them, get, the bodgies and the woodgies of the time going up and down Queen Street with their big flash cars and the Fords, and he'd be driving with his arm out the window and his other arm's around the girl, he's sort of got.
Imagine getting a look today going down Queen Street on the old Vanguard with your arm out the window.
I don't think you're even allowed down Queen Street.
Most probably not.
No, and if you do, you've got to do 30k.
Yeah. What's about all those old Vanguards did?
But Uncle Jim, he had a daughter, Brenda, and if you're watching Brenda, she absolutely thought it was the most ugliest thing she'd ever seen in her entire life, and she pretty much refused to get into it. So
That's not fair. That's not fair. For previous owners, that we apologise. They were a great looking car.
and as the the space, there was this much room in between the back
there was.
seat and the front of the.
Good back seat, mate. Great back seat.
So did you get to drive it yourself, did you, and take it off somewhere? And
No, I sat in the back seat.
oh,
Yes, I did.
oh, okay.
And I hold the record for breaking an axle. No one I knew ever broke an axle in an old Vanguard because they were built like a brick, you know what?
Toilet.
Yes. And I remember going down the Hornby shops and I stuck it in reverse and all the boys were watching me. I was about 15 and I gave it a big boot. Next one, all I heard was clunk.
Rattle, rattle, rattle.
And Dad still doesn't know to this day.
Oh,
He did. My uncle was there. He said, I won't tell your father. And he never did.
wow.
Anyway, great old car.
So who broke the axle? Him?
Yes. I just broke Dad.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, just.
That's great days.
And I think they had a Fergie engine in them.
They did.
Four-cylinder.
Yeah, they had the tractor engine. And I think that's one of the reasons why we most probably owned one in those days. Because we used it regularly on the farm.
Oh,
We're towing trailers. You towed everything with even the harrows. If you needed to, yeah. And just sitting in there with that smell of that leather. Oh, still smell it.
So they've got a reasonably set out dashboard. And I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, I think there's 5 buttons on that dashboard that you all pushed. I think the starter's there as well.
Starter's there.
You turn the key on, push the starter.
Yeah, now of course you have your thing in your pocket and you press the button again.
So we're back to pressing buttons.
And hey, it's start, it's a press button start. We had it 50 odd years ago. How funny how things come around.
There's nothing new in cars, absolutely not. I mean, they started making them in sort of 1900 and everybody's battling for different ways to make an engine and different ways to make things go, gearboxes and diffs and all the rest of it.
But they were so strong. They had a real chassis in them and they were really, really strong.
Wow.
You know, when you go surfing in one, with it curved. I'm just sorry.
So did you ever get to drive it like the first time?
Yeah, I drove it.
With your father sitting next to you?
He taught me to drive in it.
Take foot off the clutch?
Yeah. Well, of course, once again, as a farmer's son, you were driving the tractors anyway at a very young age. I think you weren't allowed to drive your tractor till you was 12 or 13 and even be on one. And of course, we abided by that law, of course we did. But, I remember the day I went for my licence, and it was in the Vanguard. When I think about it now, it was too. And I went out in the paddock, stuck a couple of forks in the paddock, practiced my parking, in and out, went there next day and got my licence.
How big was that? Is that a, sort of like the whole test? Or
Just about.
Oh, really?
Hey, a funny story, I got to tell you. We're going down a ricket in Christchurch, Sockburn. There's a bridge, and we had to go around this bend, and the cop said to me, follow that car. So the car cut the corner, so did I. He said, you cut that corner. I said, yeah, but you told me to follow the car in front of you. He just sort of sent something like buggy, and signed it off. I'll never forget it.
And when you got your licence, it was just a little book.
Yep.
And they pasted a tab in it. I think it lasted 1 year. Different, it was a green one, a blue one for the next year, yellow one for the next year, blah blah blah. So they sort of, you've got to pay for your licence
Yep.
every year after you got it.
All these memories are coming back of this car now. It's funny when you start talking about all those old days, we even towed trailers with a stack of hay on the back.
Old George Loretz had one, and he towed all his vegetables into town,
Yep.
towing a great big trailer.
Three, first, second, third, reverse, back there, up.
I thought it was a flash car because my Uncle Jim had one, and he picked me up from Turua, and I think I was 15, and took me to a place called Matahina in the Bay of Plenty.
Yep.
And that was the Whakatane board mills logging village.
Yep.
And I enjoyed the trip. It was lovely, rode quite nicely.
Yeah, they rode quite nicely. Never heard of stabilisers, but that was all right.
Yeah, and they had a horn ring.
Yep.
And you sort of, wherever you are on the steering wheel, you just...
Bang, 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 anywhere.
That's right. And a dipstick. It was on the floor.
Oh, that was the driver.
It was on the floor. You push your foot on. And I think that should come back because you're driving along these days and the car's coming at you and you, oh God, it's a bloody, and he's bringing this
It would be quicker.
Yeah. So you just got it on the floor. You just tick, tick,
Yep.
tick with your foot.
There's a go. Click, click. Click, click. Click, click. Returned. Funny days.
And the boot, you get a fair bit into the boot.
The boot in those days, but as I said, with the upholstery in the back, or the back seats, you didn't have to get someone to move their seat forward. But big fellas like you and I sat in the back. There was heaps and heaps of room, and the boot was the same. It just held a guitar. That's all I had to worry about, in those days. But they were just a good old wagon, and you felt safe in them. They were solid chassis.
So if you hit something, it stayed hit.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, there's another story. Listen to this. I backed out of a driveway, and this old fella's coming down the road, and he was over the white line on the inside, and he clipped the back of it. And I remember the tow bar on the car on the Vanguard was a square one with a ball, and I opened his Mark III Zephyr up from one end to the other. I never forget it. Took a tin opener. Isn't that funny? I remember all these stories. The old fella wasn't impressed.
The bloke driving the car or your old man?
No, Dad was all right till the old guy started giving me a hard time when Dad came down, and all of a sudden Dad's attitude went away from me and started giving him a hard time. So that was quite handy.
Yeah. So out of 10, what would you give the Vanguard?
I've got to have a 9.
Oh,
It's got to have a 9, besides breaking an axle and destroying a Mark III Zephyr. And I think there's a patch on the back of it about that big where he first hit it. And we just drove away. He didn't.